Dear Ray, I write your name, not for the first time, but like the first time, it seems strange, yet familiar. Sometimes I wonder what happened to us that night. It's like we went into a new dimension, a place that finally feels like home. I'm glad you're able to spend some time with yourself. It's funny how our lives just took yet another turn. I hope it never ends. I'm so happy to have you, to share this life with you. You've affected me so much. I can't imagine what life would be like if I had you and then you were gone. I hope I always appreciate us every day. I love you, Jean.
Dear Jean, I sit here 1 week before I will propose to you, reflecting deeply upon my life. I cannot help but feel scared of what is to come. Life is meant to be hard. It is what makes us who we are. It is what makes us happy and sad, angry, content, and unique. If life was easy, we would never appreciate anything. Jean, I appreciate you. I appreciate your son. I appreciate what you both have done for my life. Ray.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I am Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Please check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy or our website, couplessynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform the relationships for over 20 years.
You know, everyone says you should work on your relationship, but nobody teaches us how. So we've created this podcast to teach people what they can do to create the relationship they've always dreamed of.
With the partner they fell in love with. On today's podcast, we are going to get a little personal. In a very personal place. We are actually in our home in Colorado.
Yes.
And this is a wonderful place for us, and going back and forth between Chicago and Colorado. And, you know, this is the first time that we're recording here.
Yeah, this is a 24-year-long dream. Actually, we decided on our honeymoon that we were going to have a second home. That was in Maine originally. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then 5 years ago when the kids moved out, we thought it might be Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And started hiking and wound up in Colorado.
Yes, so we are not recording in the home pub in Chicago, but I don't know, maybe we'll soon have a home pub here.
A saloon.
A saloon, right. So as I mentioned, we are going to get a little personal today because we are talking about, I guess, love letters, really.
Yeah.
Right? Reminiscing about the past. And, you know, this topic comes about because every couple that we interview, you know, that are potentially part of the couple-to-couple coaching program, they all say we want to go back to the way things were when we met.
Right.
When we first started dating.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, when we ask them the magic wand question, you know, if everything can be the way you want it to be, what would that look like? And they say, we want to go back.
Yeah. You know, I think it's so easy to want to go back because, well, you remember the good stuff. The more difficult stuff starts to fade. But also, there wasn't the depth of investment and vulnerability and work. And so it's much more fun in the beginning. But we know it's way better longer term if you do the work. And so this idea of reminiscing and looking back at the way things really were can really give you a nice snapshot of who you were back then, the dreams you had, the truth that you knew.
And the connection that you had, the passion that you had, the excitement, that comes with a new relationship. And, the quote in the beginning of this podcast that came from a letter that I wrote in 1997, I think. Yeah, 1997. That was a week before I was going to propose to you. The funny thing is, when you talk about memory and reminiscing, our memory is designed to fade, right? Our memory is not accurate. And so when couples are trying to remember the past, it is skewed. And so just talk about us specifically,
right.
When we are going into these letters that we wrote each other in the beginning of our relationship, it brings about a perspective that I speak for myself, that I don't have now of the past. It's reminding me of a person that I was back then, reminding me of feelings and thoughts that I had back then.
Isn't that amazing? Because it's just you. It's just who we are. And as we get older, it doesn't seem like you get older. It feels like the same person back then, right?
Right.
And then it's like you're...
But then again, it doesn't.
Right. It's like you're overlaying your current mind with your past mind.
You're reading words. If those of you out there have letters that you wrote each other in the beginning of a relationship, break them out, right, and read them, because you're reading these words that you don't even remember creating or putting together. I mean, there's a letter here I just picked up. Jean, you are very much like this flame I sit before. Writing you this letter in bed, listening to my music and watching this candle burn seems to remind me of you. Yes, your life is lived within the flame. It is the flame. Up until now, mine has never been just that. Just, it's like I didn't know I was so poetic back then.
So I want to share this letter. This is a letter that was written before we were married, but after we were engaged. As you lie in my arms, I felt you fall into a deep, restful sleep, and I heard your breathing, deep and rhythmic and comforting. After a while of listening to you sleep, knowing I wouldn't disturb you, I got up and went to the kitchen to wrap up the last of the cookies for Alex's lunch. And I thought, this is how I want Alex's life to be. To have two parents who care about his life and his life in order and on a schedule. And how he had every right to have this, and now he does. I did the best I could for him, and my best is better than lots of two-parent families. But the void in Alex's life grew, and he needed a man's touch. And the void in my life grew, and I needed a man's touch too. As we filled the gap in your life, you filled the gap in his and mine. And I know much more than you how hard the next year of our lives will be. I know we will all grow. I know we will all survive and become even stronger and more united. I don't know what it feels like to parent a child that I didn't produce, but I know your rewards will be great. There's nothing more important than family, our family. I know that legally I'm not Cadcodian and neither is Alec, but inside we are as much Cadcodian as you are a husband and father. And now you lay next to me with a day's growth of stubble on your face, and I don't think I will ever see anything as beautiful or hear anything as wonderful. My heart is so full, and I feel that I can conquer the world, and if you just ask me why, I'll just smile and say, it's your love. Jean. When we were dating, we were not just you and me, we were blending. Alec was 10 years old, and it was a really difficult decision on your part to try to sort through those feelings of, I think you called it instant family.
Yeah, add water, instant family. Blended families were It wasn't a very common word back then. That's like 24 years ago. And so it was a very difficult decision to make. I was fairly young, 24 years old. Got married, I was 25. And so to make that decision of instantly becoming a father and not knowing how to do that at all.
To someone who's 14 years younger than you.
Right. It was a very difficult thing. And I think because the structure of our family right from the beginning was complex, I think it really made us look at things very differently.
Yeah, we didn't really have an opportunity to casually date or even to spend a ton of time just me and you. We had the seriousness of raising a child thrown into that mix. What I find interesting is, when you write letters, it comes from a different place than when you just talk about it. And looking at these letters, like you said, you didn't know you were so poetic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's things that I would probably never say out loud that I would write down. Things that saying out loud would seem kind of weird, but when you take the time to collect your thoughts and write them down, you speak from a depth in the heart, right? And as I look through the years of letters, it's like we have only written letters to each other when we were apart. Like the one I just read, you were asleep and we were in the same place.
Home, right.
But I was, that was in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of letters in the beginning. And then the other ones are like when you take time and go away, or I take time and go away, or we went on a retreat or something.
Yeah, actually this is in 2000. And this was a time when you went on retreat. And I wrote you this letter. And it's interesting, one of the things I said here was, I never tell you or show you enough how much I love you. I guess that's my struggle. But if you take away anything from this letter, I want you to know how much I appreciate you for all the things you do for me and our children, for all the things you do to smooth things between me and my family, for all the things you do for our home, and for all the times you put up with my crabby ass. It's reading these letters that puts you in this frame of mind of appreciation, I think.
There's a lot of talk these days about trauma. And what happens with trauma is you get activated by something and all those feelings come back as though it's happening now.
All the negative feelings.
Right.
Right.
And so what we're doing here is the same thing in the opposite direction.
Bringing back the positive feelings.
Right. You can't hear those words and not feel that emotion and feel that thing you had back then. That's another thing when we're interviewing a couple to see if we're going to work with them or not. We always ask them and tell us the story of how you met. And if they put a big smile on their face and you tell a story, no, you tell it, or we have different versions, we know we've got something to work with. But when you hear a couple say a sentence or two and, we met at work, and they can't access what they were really feeling back then, that tells us something as well, And so, if you haven't been in the habit of writing letters to your partner, really highly encourage you to do so. You'll be surprised at what you write down because it comes from a different part of us than when we speak. You'll be surprised when you bump into that letter later on in life and reconnect with that part that you're feeling the day you wrote the letter.
And when we say write letters, we mean like pick up a pen and
Yes.
paper and actually handwrite it, because it loses something when it is typed out, or if it's just a Word document on your computer. It's not the same thing at all.
No, not
you,
at
you
all.
could
The
really
energy of
see,
it.
yeah, because like one of these letters here that I wrote you is actually typed. This is the one when you were on a retreat. And then the rest of them are actually handwritten. And then you just feel the energy in the handwriting.
Especially mine, because mine changes a lot based on what I'm feeling. I don't think yours does. Yours is pretty nice and organized and pretty. And if I'm really emotional, I can't even read what I wrote sometimes. I want to share this one. Dear Ray, I've been thinking about the last 10 years of my life, and I know that I have all I have ever wanted and more. I know that what we have is really awesome. So much more than most, that's for sure. In every area of our lives, we have education and dreams. We're not afraid to reach for our dreams, and we support each other in our aspirations. Sure, there is the checks and balances, but really there is nothing I feel that you hold me back from, and I hope you feel the same way. In my perfect world, when I'm with you, everything would fall away, and I would have you completely, and I would give to you completely. But that is not possible, and probably would be yucky. But I sure like those times when I feel so close to you, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then it cuts off because I don't have the second page of this letter. So that was 10 years in.
Yeah.
You know? And, I think it's really easy to focus on logistics and tasks and problems, but I don't mention any of those in any of my letters, do you?
The problems and challenges.
Like today we had a flat tire and we
no.
had to go to the grocery
Well,
store.
it's not a diary entry.
Mm-hmm.
It is an expression of your subconscious, an expression of what it is that you feel in that moment, which captured in this letter that you're reading 20 years later, it puts you back into that moment. And that is the important thing here, and I actually really feel for the couples today because of all this technology. I wonder how many of them actually are, writing down notes to each other or letters to each other.
Yeah, I saw once someone had a quilt with all their text messages from when they were dating.
Really?
Yeah, which I think would be awesome also. But, you don't get the feeling of, especially through text, it's very different. And I'm sure they're not doing these long, drawn-out texts.
Yeah, it's pretty challenging for couples today because they don't have any time. They don't create time for themselves, to sit down and write something to their partner. It's just a shame because they're losing out on all of this, these memories that they can tap into, when they want to reconnect again.
I think that's another thing that's really wonderful about our relationship and actually the families that we grew up in, because they were great scribes. I have home movies of my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I often sit and watch vacations we've gone on or special moments in our lives of, someone's birthday or our wedding or something like that. And it just feels so great. And it feels a depth that you don't feel when you watch TV and look at someone else's story. You're looking at your own story. And that story gets to be told and it gets to unfold.
Well, I think another important point is couples today are just living day by day and just surviving. And when you reminisce about the past, when you talk about your relationship together, the way it used to be when you were first together, and what were the things that you appreciated, what were the things that you loved and were excited about, it helps you stay on track as to where you're going, right? Because if you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've come from.
And when you stop and you write, you have to reflect. You have to do some soul searching and really collect your thoughts and let yourself speak from a place of priority. And most couples don't even have the time to spend just hanging out together, let alone reminiscing or writing letters or creating the memories that are the glue in your relationship that keep things going. I mean, you could be in really different places in your relationship and feel disconnected and far apart. And then, maybe you're going through your drawer looking for a piece of jewelry and you pull out a letter and read it. And it's like, oh, I remember now. I remember why I'm with you. I remember how I felt about you back then and who you really are. And it's not about the stress I'm under right now or, the temporary things. It's about the thing that lives throughout the entire relationship.
A lot of my clients, they get the concept of performance improvement, like in their companies and in their careers, where businesses take a look at how things have been going. They are constantly looking for ways to improve. They're always looking at that future point, that goal that they are trying to achieve, and they're always talking about it. And they do that because if you're not talking about it, you're not creating, you're not improving. If you just put your nose to the grindstone and just do the same thing over and over again, you're going to repeat mistakes from the past. And so we encourage couples to constantly be talking about their relationship, constantly be reminiscing about how things have been and how they want to improve and what is their common vision for the future.
Yeah, what you're talking about is like the mental aspect of things, like here's my goal and here's how I'm going to achieve my goal and here's, it's very logical. It's very mental.
Right.
And, we always talk about how relationships are emotional and the emotions need to be felt by having heart-to-heart conversations and not even always with words, but like your heart's talking by holding each other, by cuddling, by sitting together, by, it is a very lost art form as well as kissing. And if you want to have a great intimate relationship, those are the kind of qualities that or the behaviors that are going to lead to great intimacy. It's not what happens in bed. It's all the little touch points along the way. And the kissing of hello and goodbye and the flirting and teasing and all that kind of stuff is really important. And writing letters is one way that it's almost like getting a little surprise when you're all by yourself, but all of a sudden your partner's there in a really close, personal, and intimate way when you get those letters. And it really helps you feel that connection, especially when you're able to talk after you've maybe been in an argument or something and you write a letter saying, you know what, how I really feel is this.
It gives you the opportunity to express your emotions and the true depth of your vulnerability without feeling guarded, without feeling this need to have to explain yourself, which you would if you were having a conversation with your partner. Yes, it is absolutely emotional, right? Unfortunately, when we start working with couples and we start talking about the benefit of connecting at an emotional level, a lot of times their eyes just glaze over because they're so focused on the problem in the here and now. That's all well and good about spending time together and kissing and cuddling, but I can't even stand to be in the room with this person. And I'm so tired of the arguments we're getting into and the complaints. I mean, it's just, tell us how to fix it right now.
I love that. And they want to tell us who's right. And then what happens is we slow that down and we don't let them really get to that because we say, we have some things we have to teach you first in order for you to have this argument in a way better way. And I love when we get to the moment where we see them, what we call giggling on the couch.
That takes a while.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of hard work on both their parts. But they have to see, the benefit behind putting in that hard work. They have to see the benefit of sharing these deep, vulnerable emotions with each other, the good, bad, and the ugly from the past.
Yeah, people don't mind sharing the ugly out loud in front of other people and very personally. And it's like they want to keep the warm emotions and the loving emotions a secret and tucked inside. And I was thinking about that, like when you come up to me and you've had some experience, I don't know, maybe you saw something on TV or you were listening to the radio and you felt like you really wanted to let me know how much you love me and appreciate me. And when it comes out of left field like that, it's sort of overwhelming to me, and it makes me almost feel like more guarded and like, why are you saying all these things to me about how important I am or how much you love me, like kind of out of the blue. And if it was in a letter, I would be much more open to receiving that. And I'd probably read it about 20 times, maybe 30.
Well, because you would make sure that you are in a place to receive it and a time to receive it versus, your partner coming up to you and saying something that
like you're doing dishes and all of a sudden.
They typically don't say, right? Because you guys have been together for such a long time and all of a sudden they're expressing gratitude or appreciation and you're raising an eyebrow because it's just not, you're not accustomed to it as far as the way things have been going right now.
One of the ways that you can really stay on track with stuff like this is on holidays when we give each other a card. And we each have a card that we've given to each other. I think yours is on Mother's Day and mine's on Father's Day that I gave to you. Mm-hmm. And that's another way to, keep that in mind, maybe birthdays or anniversaries, to maybe use those moments to take time and reminisce and reflect and really let your person know what you're thinking and feeling and how much you care about them.
Yeah, just don't go to Walgreens and...
Well, you got to go somewhere.
Yeah, and just pull a card and...
Sign your name.
Right. You have this opportunity then to really just express something that's, personal. So for mine, it says, for you, Jean, on Mother's Day, all things change for the good. Your life, your love, and your Mother's Day. As long as this world will allow us, you will never celebrate this day alone again. I love you, Ray and Alec.
And that was probably the first year.
I think it is,
because you would have put Dean on there,
right?
If it wasn't. On Father's Day and always, no matter what else complicates our lives, one thing is pure and simple. I love you, heart and soul. That was what was written. That's not what I wrote. That was the
pre-printed card.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dear Ray, my lover, my partner, my friend. In good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. Who knew we would be challenged with so much so soon? I know that we are going through some tough times. It's always seemed like success or failure are just around the corner. Through all this, there are the boys to consider. And even though being a dad is much more difficult and wonderful than you thought it would be, you are most beautiful to me when you are with the boys. I see how hard you try. You and them are so beautiful together. You are like a gift that has not been fully opened. I love you, Jean. It could be written today as well, right? Seems like success and failure are just around the corner. And there's always those ups and downs, and, it's just part of the journey.
It is so very easy to lose that connection. Mm-hmm. It can happen in an hour.
Yeah.
And when that goes on for a very long time, that distance gets even greater.
I would say it could happen in a minute.
In a minute, probably, yes. And as that distance gets greater, it is filled with resentment and disconnection.
A lot of times when we ask couples, what is it that your partner does that they love you? They always say it's the little things. And the same thing is true in the opposite direction. It's the little things those little slights, the not including your partner, not sharing information, not showing up, or whatever those little things are getting a cup of coffee, not offering your partner a cup of coffee. Those are also the little things that he wrote a relationship. And writing love letters is a great way to not just make a deposit today, but it's an investment. It grows over time, and when you go back and look at it, it's even worth more than it was the day you wrote it.
I like that. That's really profound, right? It's an investment for your future. Mm-hmm. So we want to thank you for joining us today and for listening to Couple Synergy on this topic of the art of writing love letters.
Yeah, we got a little personal. It was nice.
Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships, and this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast, and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs, such as Relationship 101, the home study course, the Couples Weekend Intensive, our online membership called Connections, and our premier coaching program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.